On. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another community conversation. Delighted to have a friend from way, way back and a brother of mine, Justin Washington, featured on this conversation today. I'm Brandon. I'm here in the Bay Area, excited to jump into it. If you're new to community conversations, we try to articulate things that we've learned in our careers in technology or investing or entrepreneurship, some stuff that you could never learn in college, and kind of the idea that it's called community college. Community is really, really important in developing just as a whole person and being. So we'll jump into some of the community questions and community pieces as well in this conversation. But without any further ado, I'm going to throw it from East Palo Alto, California, down south. Justin, tell us kind of where you are, a little bit about who you are, what you're working on these days. Take a couple minutes for your intro, and then we'll kick it off from there.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, B. Or Brandon, Mr. Middleton. What should I call you in this form? My brother.
Yeah, Brandon is cool, man.
Yeah. I'm in LA currently. I am originally though from Detroit, born and raised, Midwest kid like you. And it's part of the reason why we bonded. But we'll get to that. But yeah, right. Well, currently I'm a product manager at Apple, focused on the Apple TV app and TV Plus and engagement and discovery and partner tooling, all things that power, a great experience with the Apple TV app uh, on many devices out there. So that's what I've been focused on the past 2 years, I would say. Started in summer 2021. So just about 2 years. But being born and raised in Detroit, man, came from a great upbringing. I think we'll talk about that a bit more, but to kind of fast forward into from there to here, I was someone that was always entrenched in the arts and being creative when I wasn't trying to be, the next Allen Iverson, and wasn't convinced that I was going to the NBA. Grew up playing and singing in church and had a family, a musical family. My grandfather was also a photographer. So these things were just around me all the time, along with friends and other people. And it was my love for that drew me or into technology or career in technology. I remember when I first started making beats in Fruity Loops in high school. I'm a very rational person. So I said, if I can't be the next, Timbaland, the Neptunes, Pharrell, pre-MAGA, Kanye West, um, Jay Dilla, then I want to make the things that they use. And so that drew me into technology, and also heard that engineers made a lot of money. So I was like, all right, cool. Well, this is what I'm doing. That part. So um, I decided to major in computer science in school. I was not the best coder by any means, intimidated by people that were surrounded by me that were winning national programming competitions and been programming and coding since they were, since they could walk, probably. Um, but I kept going because I kept getting great internships every year. And that led me to starting full time at Apple, actually, right after I graduated school at Michigan, University of Michigan. Forgot to mention that. Uh, was there for a
Congrats.
couple Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yes, yes. Yeah, we're coming off a great, great year. Bittersweet because Harbaugh left, but we'll deal with that. But he guess he got the job done, so it's all good. So started at Apple as a QA engineer, actually. Was there for a couple years. And my career has been somewhat of a, fugitive slash vagabond across Silicon Valley, Silicon Beach. Spent some time at Twitter, moved to LA to start working at Snapchat. Was there for 4 years, bounced around a few startups after that, and made my way back to Apple in LA a couple years ago. And all in between that have been creative, ebbed and flowed in consistency, highs and lows on opportunities, but feeling like I've gotten a bit of a stability right now and an output that I would like to do and stick to and balancing career and family and everything. So in a good space right now. And all of that in that path has been all kinds of things that have happened. So we can double click into any of those points in time. But in that time, my college time and internships time is when we got connected, you know. So um, our relationship goes back and it's been strengthened since then. So glad to be doing this.
Yeah, yeah. Um, as you were talking, I think the last time I actually saw Steve Jobs alive, like in Cupertino, was when you were like hosting me at Apple, like
Oh
when you bring your
yeah,
uh,
man,
it's
yeah.
that long, folks, that we
Mhm.
know each other.
Right, that's
Uh,
right.
but you know, for people, I ask them a lot, like, did you see yourself doing what you're currently doing when you're like a little boy, you know, coming up in the 313 in Detroit? Like, did you see it, or has it been like one step after the next, like new things that you hadn't previously imagined, you know, starting to come into view and you kind of stepping into a little bit of the unknown? Give folks who are watching a little bit of a sense of like, yeah, I mapped this out all along versus no, it's been a little bit more serendipitous.
More the latter for sure. I couldn't see this at all as a kid. I mean, I just wasn't exposed to it. You know,
Mm.
my dad worked in law enforcement, and he still is. He's a sheriff of Wayne County right now, which is the largest county in Michigan where Detroit is. And he has been in law enforcement since before I was born. So over 30 years, you know, for sure. And my mom worked in media and television production, radio, you know, she was an on-air personality. She also had her own, she was a cosmetologist and she had her own salon. She worked in ad agencies. So in my direct household, I just wasn't exposed to it. And then everyone else around me was doing a bunch of different things, you know, and church was just a part of our life, and, you know, music and all these things. So, you know, Detroit, you know, like Chicago, Midwest, a music epicenter, you know, a hip hop epicenter, gospel epicenter, you know, and so I didn't see what I'm doing now back then at all as a possibility. I just knew that getting good grades was a good thing
Mhm.
and that would lead you to more opportunities. I think I got that early on. It's funny because I was having a conversation with some friends about that. Like, when did you get the motivation to do good in school from an academia standpoint? And when did you know that like that would lead to different things? I think I got that bug early on. Was more so like a, a badge of honor to say that I get all A's, you know, and having that be a part of my identity more than anything. And then later, I started to understand that, oh, these opportunities can open up to you. And then, you know, my creative pursuits led me deeper into technology and then so on and so forth. So,
Yeah, that's very interesting. Like to juxtapose that against mine, where I couldn't hoop or I couldn't do like the extracurriculars unless my homework is done and unless the grades were good enough to warrant the privilege, which it was framed for me like, oh, basketball is a privilege or doing this is a privilege. And in
mhm,
order to get to that privilege, you need to do kind of all the foundational things. So I
yeah,
was getting A's for that reason because I wanted to do other stuff.
there you
And
go.
lesser than, then I would be in the house on the weekends.
Yeah, it was a gateway drug.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, let's move to like you explained a little bit about like what the upbringing was like. Um, when you talk about A's in high school, I know for myself, there was a culture shock and like a little bit of an academic shock when I went to University of Illinois for the first time. And you mentioned like coding competition winners, people, engineers since 5 and 6 years old. Like, give us a sense of how you descended upon Ann Arbor, Michigan, and like how it was when you were trying to jump into computer science and engineering.
Yeah, great question. So, coming from an era and a mindset where your GPA is everything. You
Mhm.
know, I remember I did a summer program leading into freshman year called the Bridge Program. And in that program, we got to take a couple classes. And I remember starting off with a really good GPA because those classes counted for credit. And so I would go into the fall career fairs in engineering school with like a GPA, and like my real classes hadn't kicked in yet, but I still had something that was worth talking about to recruiters and stuff. So I was like, this is great. But that awakening came really, really fast. Uh, and I think I remember like the first semester I got like a 3.3 or something like that. And then the second semester I got like 2.7. And it was like, wait, two, what? Like, what's going on here? Wait, hold on. Wait, like I got two C's? Like, what's happening? I got C plus? What? And the learning in that was about when you're moving into an environment where like from moving from an environment where everything is laid out for you, you're in your parents' house, so you don't really have a lot of freedom. You don't have a lot of, things are kind of driven for you. Even your extracurriculars is a very strict regimen. Day to day is predictable what you're going to do. To college where no one's making you get up, and go somewhere. Your schedule is kind of ebbs and flows. You are trying to balance um, your time socially, how much you should study for things, delivering on deadlines, and everything is new.
Mhm.
On top of having the right recipe of the right classes to take together to yield, the right result on time and GPA for that matter. And you're learning all of that as soon as you come in, combined with being at a school where football is religion and sports is great and like everybody's just good at everything around you. So trying to make sense of all of that was like, whoa, and I knew that my edge would not be delivering on the best grades. It would be like, all right, I got to move and shake on planning for my future, which will be making as many relationships as I can at these career fairs, at these info sessions, and relying on my peers to help get through because I could just coast and go alone, really mostly in high school, but I knew that would be the case in college soon. And I faced academic probation twice and all of that. We can get into that, but yeah, it was not pretty. And I had my low points and eventually turned it around, but it was an awakening for sure.
Yeah. And was it the same type of baptism, for lack of a better metaphor, when you started to work full time? Or would you say that after the internships, you kind of got the hang of corporate life? Or did you go through another cycle of moving from Midwest to another place, kind of starting over, having to build a foundation for yourself and kind of start painting the canvas from scratch?
I would say it was a little bit of the latter. It was definitely a breath of fresh air, and I'll get to that. One, it was a bit easier because I had done the internships, right? And once I got the first internship I got in 2007 at Microsoft, it was Explorer internship program where I cycled through the product role, the dev role, and the tester role, right? And the light just clicked on for me. That made school a bit easier, not necessarily from a rigor standpoint, but I could see the light at the end of the tunnel very clear. And the way that, the companies at the career fairs and info sessions sell you on working at the company is like, look at all these perks. Look at where you can live. Look at what you can do. And you can build the next great thing. You can meet Bill Gates. And you got to go to his house and all this stuff. So you know, by the time I started full time after doing that and then doing another internship at Yahoo, summer 2008, and then um, Apple twice before starting full time, I gotten the lay of the land a bit about working in this space. And to add to that, being Black in a predominantly white environment that also wasn't new because that's how school was. So in a lot of ways I was prepared, so the baptism wasn't as uh dramatic as it was going from high school to college. If anything, it was like, oh, I'm getting bags like now. So it's up. You know what I mean? I will work for this bag versus working even harder for a grade that's going to, direct, my future in some way. You know what I mean? So
Max, I tell people like I literally probably don't use 95% of what I learned in engineering, but I'm not mad because the rigor and the calluses that you build up by scratching your knees and like banging your heads on those engineering homework sets and those things that it makes you kind of resilient and unafraid of taking something brand new that you've never seen before, having at least a sense of I can understand this and I know that there's no compression algorithm or experience. So I just need time with this problem in order to start to leave my impact or leave my mark on it. So that the self-confidence that wasn't there as a freshman in college, after that next 4 or 5 years was definitely present as I was stepping into the workforce for the first time. So that's maybe a bar for people that are in college right now. Like keep grinding through it. You might not use every single thing that you learn, but it's not for nothing. And you got AI and ChatGPT and like a bunch of these AI tools in your corner now that Justin and I, did not have at all. It's crazy to see how much almost 2 decades has given us, in terms of the new tech. I remember when iPhone first came out. I remember when Twitter first came out. Snap just came out. Like maybe the next question, you've been a heavy user of these products and then have been blessed to actually work for the companies. What has being a user of the actual tech done to enhance like your voice inside of the company or your strategy to go about the roles that you've been given, or maybe it hasn't benefited you at all? Give us a sense of like what being a user and then working at these companies has done for you in your career.
one, I'll say I've been extremely blessed to have the experiences that I've had, working for very reputable brands, um, and some of the best brands and being around some of the best people, in the world, and working on products that have defined and changed the world, you know. It's not lost on me now how rare that is, for someone to work at a brand that they can identify with and also work on things to where if I told you where I worked and the team that I work on, you could say, oh yeah, so you work on this.
Yeah.
Like everybody doesn't have that experience, right? It's like, oh, I work here, I work at XYZ, I do this. What does that mean? Oh, that means I do this, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and I still have to do a bit of that, right? In the product role. Maybe we'll talk about that because that's also a whole bag of, worms about what it is and who does it and who should do it and shouldn't do it. But I will say that one, it has been cool to work at places where I am a user of the product and I like the product. Now, what that's done for me, I think in general, in the product role, I say the most important skill to have is empathy. You cannot be successful in delivering on something that solves a customer problem without understanding who they are and stepping in their shoes and directly identifying with their pain points, being able to evangelize that, being able to convince other people that these problems are worth solving, collaborating with your stakeholders to yield something that hits on those problems and is better than the competition, and keep doing that, rinse and repeat over and over and over and over and over again. So if anything, it's helped open my eyes to all the different kinds of people that use these products, right? Because I can use it, but I'm just one person. And I think we're cut from a cloth where we feel like we have pretty good taste, right? But when you're building something that's or working on something that's going to be used by billions and billions of people, that's a different mindset to have where it can't just be good for me. It's got to be good for all these people. And so by virtue of working at these world-class, top tier brands and companies, it's expanded my thinking of what is good, and the quality bar has, been upped just by working on these things at scale. So,
Yeah. Funny story as you were talking about kind of recognizable brands. When I first met my wife, I told her I worked at Cisco. She literally thought I was a manager at the truck driving Cisco that does food delivery. And I had to like educate her on like what a router was, what a switch was, what a firewall was. Um, so everybody is not as blessed to work at
Mm.
instantly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know that. Yep. Well, it's
Um,
funny because or when I said I worked at Apple, some of the people, some of my friends would be like, "Oh yeah, you were. Oh, so I can just pull up at the store and see you." And it's like, not quite. It's levels, it's levels. I'm like corporate, and like Cupertino. What's Cupertino? Where that's at? Oh, I mean, it's in California. Oh, you in LA? Okay, not quite, So it's a little bit of explainability, but once we put the dots there, they understood.
well, we're like halfway through our time. Let's do like a little halftime uh like like a lightning round of sorts. And I'm gonna take you through maybe top three things that you might be listening to right now in terms of your musical taste. Maybe we'll go, since you mentioned Apple TV, maybe three or four shows. And then just to educate the people, give them like maybe two or three or four resources like that you use to educate yourself on the go. So let's start in the musical category. What are you listening to, or who do you like these days? And then we'll shift to the other categories.
Oh, yeah. On the music side, I put my wife on too. But I think you know about Selection, right? The Selection Collective started off SoundCloud days, and now they're a Apple Music One radio station. And Joe K and Andre Power and those guys have been, they've been doing what they've done for so long, and all the producers and DJs under their umbrella now. Um, I've been really just going hard on listening to every one of their episodes because, and which explains, my output and what I've been doing recently creatively, which is like these blends and remixes and mashups. And I kind of feel away because on social, like I don't want to be one of those. Like I don't want to be that play that content creator game. But I will say that's the cloth of what selection is, which is like, blending, the sound of today and tomorrow with like fusing that with like, you know, the sound of that we grew up with, R&B and hip hop and Latin and Afro beats and I'm on piano and, you know, um, all this stuff, right? And they really cut from the cloth. Like they got the same influences that, we all love, from Dilla to Timbaland and Neptunes and all this stuff, right? So I've been like super inspired and like just drinking from the fire hose of everything that they've been doing as far as their sets, because I hear like different ideas on like what to connect, and all the producers and all the DJs are like, contributing to what they are doing is just super dope. So I've been like really into them.
Yep.
Uh there's a couple more on the music side, but maybe I'll stop there. And we can get to the other categories if you want. Um
Okay,
or if
so
you
we
want more, I can say.
from your ears, let's go to the eyes.
Okay.
What are you and your family watching these days that you enjoy?
So wifey and I are currently binging Suits right now.
Okay.
You a Suits fan? You watch Suits or
Watched every season last year, so I
okay,
went
there you go.
all like nine seasons in 2023.
Man, when I tell you, bro, like I just told a coworker this. When I started at Apple in 2011, I was on the QA team in iOS. And I was testing the iTunes and app stores, responsible for testing those when I first started. And in iTunes back then, they would have a free download like every week, that you could just kind of get as a freebie. And I would use that to test to make sure downloads were working properly. In 2011, at the time, the free episode download for a particular week was the Suits pilot.
Hmm.
And I remember watching it back then. I'm like, man, this is a hell of a premise. Like, this is crazy. But I never got into the show. I never watched it, on prime time. I think it was on USA at the time. And I never watched it, but my friends, family will always swear by it. And I'd be like, man, I'll get to it at some point. But in recent, months, years, it's got a resurgence because I think it hit Netflix.
Yep.
And the cast has been popping up at like, the Globes, and like they had a Super Bowl ad they ran. And I'm like, all right, we're gonna get into this. And so I think my wife started it over the holiday break. And then I joined in. And man, we're on season 6 now, but it's been a ride. I've been like, this is just top tier TV, man. I'm telling you. Like, it ain't, don't get a lot better than this, really.
Yeah, to never have gone to law school or like done a lot of classes in that area. It's funny how you could just observe depositions, courtrooms, like this different kind of ways that lawyers kind of walk in and out of situations and feel like, oh, I know kind of exactly ish what this industry is about and how it feels to be on both sides of an argument and like how some of that back office um work goes and like the judges and like all the different stakeholders. So
Yeah.
I went to law school, but I've gone to the School of Suits and a
Hey,
couple other ones for sure.
I got my honorary JD, and I passed the bar via Suits. I think I was talking to my wife about this morning. I'm like, man, I'm so impressed with the mental gymnastics, the wit, like, and obviously it's TV, so stuff is dramatized, but like you said, being able to walk in situations and walk out of it. And you would think like, oh, the law is the law, like it is what it is, but you have layers on making your case, convincing, persuading, what we got to do in our roles and product, right? Like storytelling, narratives, precedent, all these tools at your display to get the result that you want, which makes the law a lot grayer than it is presented, and I'm impressed generally by, the law side, the mindset that it takes to get yourself out of a pickle or persuade people in a different direction when your back is against the wall. I think that's just, it's incredible, so.
Yeah, Allen Iverson. I heard you say you wanted to be like him when you were growing up as a kid. Uh, Practice, right? I saw them several times in the episodes that I watched, kind of do the fake trial, like the mocks.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that they did that as lawyers, like
Confirms.
prep for the actual case, and it takes almost like the whole firm's resources to sit everybody down in the same place, same time, and like go through all of the corner cases and both sides of the argument. So
Yeah.
yeah, big shouts to whoever. If you ever see this conversation between Brandon and Justin, and you worked on Suits,
Shout
a
out to
big
you.
heart to
Yeah.
you. So the third bucket that we talked about was things that you consume to educate yourself, maybe like while on the go, or that just-in-time learning to be like that rock star product manager, that rock star musician, that rock star just human being.
Mhm.
Share some of those with the folks.
Yeah, I'll start out with work because we talked about the creative stuff a bit. We could talk about that too, because there's stuff I consume. You know, there was a time when, how like prepping for technical interviews, right? Like it's a thing. It's like the Olympics, and you gotta make sure you are, while you're working, tapping in and keeping your ear to the street and pulse on like just what's happening not only in your industry but also in your role and the evolution of, you know, how that is being perceived and what skills are required to get from here to there. So when I'm in the interview prep mode, I was like, everything. Give me all the blogs, give me all the stuff. Um, but I think I've now drilled it down to maybe 50% of my time is like passive, uh, keeping abreast of the industry, you know, via newsletters or Twitter or whatever. And then the other half is, um, you know, blog posts here and there or newsletters from people I actually actively follow. One guy, Ben Thompson, I'm sure you heard of him. He has a Stratechery newsletter and blog. Been following him for a few years. Always enjoy his takes on tech and strategy and what's going on. He always has very nuanced uh, takes and opinions, and that's been a good roll up for me in terms of like strategy, competition, industry, and refining skills, and just looking at things from a different point of view. Uh, then there's I don't know if you've heard of him, but his name's Lenny Rachinsky.
No,
Rachitsky.
me.
Uh, he has newsletter and podcast called Lenny's Newsletter, Lenny's Podcast, but he interviews like CPOs and VPs of product and product leaders across the industry. And he recently just came out with a book, which is like a best of all his conversations and newsletters for product managers to like, you know, from strategy to processes to, you know, in everything for the product manager role, which has been really, really dope. You know, I think he's hit on something kind of similar to this and what you're doing, but like targeted to product managers, which, you know, the product management industry, as it were, I think is an industry when it comes to learning and when it comes to interview courses and all these things. There's no shortage of resources online about, you know, how to be a product manager, how to make it as a product manager, how to thrive as a product manager in tech. And I think his platform and his output from a knowledge based perspective is pretty dope. And he's got a wide range of folks he's interviewed. Some of my mentors have been on there. It's been cool. So in that lane, those two kind of newsletters have been stuff that I've been tapping into. I listen to a podcast on the way to work. Uh, and then I guess generally, creatively, outside of selection, outside of just music, you know, you mentioned Corey Henry, like some homies went to his show during Grammy Week down here. I shot one of his shows years ago here in LA. One of my good homies is good friends with him. I I listened to a lot of interviews, you know, spanning, you know, black culture, music, industry, politics, anything, more so than I'm like watching TV now. You know, like I will on my commute to work, I'm on YouTube and like the algorithms kind of tune into my interest now. So, you know, whether it's faith-based or whether it's, you know, sports or whether it's, you know, something silly like Cam and Mace's podcast or whether it's, you know, um, anything, man. Like I've been like my wife would make fun of me all the time. Like, why you watch so much interviews? Like, why don't you watch a movie or something? I'm like, man, it's just it's oh, I will say, sorry. It's a podcast called R&B Money by Tank and Jay Valentine. I don't know if you
I
up
seen.
on. Okay, yeah, yeah.
So was that I was watching the one with Robert Glasper a
Okay, there
couple
you
weeks.
go. Yep. Another good one. Yep, yep, yep. But every one of that, like majority of the episodes been hitting, you know. And I think they filled a void in the music podcast space that a lot of people were hitting on, which is like really focusing on the creative and the ins and outs of the person's journey creatively in the industry and all of that. So I've been really, really, really taking that in from an inspo perspective. So that's kind of a high level view of creative and like my job related kind of professional development stuff I've been
I,
ingesting.
there's I think a movement maybe a little bit away toward or from the standard academic way to sign up for an MBA or like go into a long curriculum and more of a functional based, cohort based, kind of shorter sprints of what I need to know just in time for the role that I want to do, for
Mhm.
the role that I'm in. Doing, work on generative AI. I am noticing a lot of courses that professionals and subject matter experts are kind of offering themselves. I think the tech is to the point where you put a paywall in front of something, you do some marketing on LinkedIn or on socials, and you find your tribe, and then you teach them. And if it's good, they'll speak about it, and you can continue to like build a business that way, and never have to be, adjunct professor or
Right.
you know, take that journey. So that is it's interesting to observe people from product, people from kind of business development and go to market, people from all kind of walks of life in corporate America gravitate towards kind of new ways to educate, to entertain, to kind of be in this era.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I'm with it too.
Yeah. So maybe to pivot the conversation a little bit to like futurism, and like we just touched on AI just a little bit, but like the way that you see your career, or the way that you would want to kind of steer people. We talked about a lot of labor being on the markets right now, a lot of like layoffs across tech. What kinds of things you think about in terms of, you know, 5, 10 years out? Where do you think we'll be, in the future? And how do you want to continue putting your hands to stuff that will align to that future that you want?
Yeah, great question. I'll give two perspectives because I'm having this conversation with coworkers and friends more often. On one hand, I have had a growing drive to learn a trade.
Hmm.
I really look at anyone in a trade vocation or skill set completely different now. We just had an electrician come to our house last week because they had to do some wiring in our bedroom that wasn't pre-wired because we got a frame TV, Samsung frame TV. And in a loft in the living room, it was already pre-wired for that, but they had to come in and do some stuff, right? And I'm just like, without you, like I would not, like every time a contractor comes, it's a new construction home that comes to fix something, plumber or whatever. I'm just like, I'm helpless. I had to file a ticket and say, this thing don't work. Can you help me? And they come and they patch it up. And I'm like, I need to learn how to use these, man. Like, I am the least Andy guy you will ever meet. I know who to call, but I do it myself. And I feel like I'm not on the side of AI is going to take over and going to kill everybody, um, yet at least. But I am on the side of, man, like I know when the ish hits the fan, like the computers ain't gonna save us. So, and I also think about just pre-colonialism. Like if I lived in a community, what would be my contribution to my community? Would I be like a locksmith? Would I be like, you know, um, some women were seamstress, would I, be a builder? Like what would I have, would I be a chef? Like what would I have contributed to my society, and community? And
Probably a
so,
cobbler. You a sneakerhead, probably a
oh,
cobbler.
all right, yeah, that works. That works. I'll take it. I'll take it. Thank you for seeing that in me.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, like that's my kind of first side of it is just like it's driven me to get away from the computer and have a skill set that's not dependent on this. Um, on the other hand, I think that it's going to continue to augment, a lot of the mundane tasks. Uh, and it's not there yet, man. As far as we just saw, I think Sora. You saw Sora, the video, uh, and on one hand, I'm like, oh my God, like this is crazy, it's going too fast. And I remember I just did this in the office. I compared what's Google's new one? Not Bard, but it's called Gemini.
Yeah.
And we asked Gemini and ChatGPT. I was having a group chat argument with some friends about NBA and playoffs and probably Trey Young and somebody and trying to do some historical analysis on stuff. And so I'm asking questions and I'm breaking it down and I'm seeing how like how fine you have to get what you need. That whole experience, one, is an exercise in communication. You know, so much is, I guess understood or overlooked in the nuances of how we interact as humans that a computer is still trying to learn and grok, right? Which it can eventually with enough input, but it's still just mimicking, patterns and learning artificially. And so looking at how it was faltering, I'm like, we were laughing because I'm like, man, like this ain't gonna take us over. Like this ain't, we not there at least yet. Like it's got a long way to go as far as considering how far we've come. So it's to sum all that up, it's driven me to get away from the computer. But on the other hand, in the future, I see this in this genre of technology augmenting, what me and you can do and what we can accomplish, and looking at the span of things that we have to do, what can we offload, what can be augmented, and what do we still have to give our full selves to? It's caused that conversation to be had, and I don't subscribe to one extreme or the other. That makes
Mm,
sense.
yeah. Do you like, how do you think about balance when it comes to kind of giving boundaries and buckets for different kind of facets of your life? I know I can sit down at a piano, for example, and like I thought it was 5 minutes, but it's like now dark outside and like hours have passed. Like how do you um set those boundaries for yourself so that you're looking at your health, nutrition, kind of intellectual curiosity, that everything is moving forward at an even pace.
Great, great question. One, something that I would ask you as a parent and as a husband, fellow husband. I know it's even more of an art and science. But man, on one hand, there's some things that will allow you to learn that organically, and some things that will happen to you in life that will force you to rebalance. Um, we've had a few of those in recent years, whether it be the pandemic or coming out of the pandemic, right? Um, I think there was, as crazy as it was and as tragic as it was, there was a certain stillness when it first hit, right? To be like, wait, like we all are just going way too fast and we just doing stuff. And like everyone being shut down and being still, it was an attractive kind of feel to certain stillness that we were in for a little bit, and some longer than others. But that was one point, that really caused me to look at my health differently. Um, and also balancing creativity and work and like all of that. When something like that happens, it's like, okay, like
Yeah.
what's important, and that forces you, right, along with different personal tragedies and losing family members and all this thing, right, you are kind of forced to get recentered, and then you're like, all right, well, I'm too young to be taking medication for cholesterol and diabetes, like let me get my diet right, you
Yeah.
know I'm not going out like that, I'm 30, I'll be 36 this year, it's too early for that. I think the underlying theme in all that too is you realize how fortunate and how valuable it is being present, because whatever your plans are, what you think is going to happen in the future can change on a dime, so you stay out of there and stay out of there too, don't dwell, I'm not saying you can't make plans or anything, but just the more and more you force yourself to be in today, it's like, all right, I'm enjoy what I'm doing right now, and whether it's, leisure, enjoy my partner, enjoy family, and just trying to give whatever moment you're in, work or play, in the moment, taking advantage of it, and then stepping out and being like, all right, that was a moment, this is a moment, this is a moment, and taking it one day at a time is far easier said than done. But um, I think recent events and years have forced society to take a hard look on how we're spending our time, which is really the only currency. People have said that, and it's a saying, it's popular, but that really is the only currency we have is time and what we do with it. So trying to be present, man, it's an art. It's a daily exercise, but I find if you have the right mindset of being present, that that balance starts to be a little bit easier.
That's beautiful. I mean, I get a lot of joy out of doing things like this. And um, we know that we, as the kind of Black and brown community, have leaned on smiles and laughter and comedy for many years to help us get through tough times. But um, yeah, it's so important to kind of show up for yourself and show up for that other person on the other side, day by day. Sometimes you can't do much about kind of the externalities of a situation, but it's the kind of in the moment valley time frames where if you're with somebody and they know that you're with them, coming out of that, it could be years and years and years and they'll never forget. So
Mhm.
you watching this and picking up anything we're putting down, just focus on today. Be kind to yourself, be kind to the next person. Maybe the last question I'll ask you as we get out of here is on that topic of joy. You're a Twitter guy, so you see a lot of funny stuff. Uh, what's the most recent couple of things maybe that have made you laugh out loud or have brought a smile to your face in the last couple of weeks here?
Ooh, oh man, there's no shortage. But right now, um, you probably seen this, but I've been seeing everyone's, like how I don't know how you call it, because it's not quite a meme, but it's like one of Twitter's inside jokes that people like kind of pile onto, um, as a part of, engagement farming or engagement baiting. And this recent one that's been happening is this guy tweeted, "What's the worst bar you've ever heard as far as
Mm.
rap bar?"
Yeah.
And seeing the quote tweets on that, like of people either hating on a rapper and just being like, "This is the worst thing you ever said ever," or kind of, you know, just really assessing like rappers have said some really stupid stuff, since hip hop began. And so that quote tweet, I don't follow the person, but like I've liked a bunch of those tweets. So like I'm getting fed like a take on that like every few scrolls. Um, and so whether it's Jay-Z's verse on Pound Cake with Drake, uh, and people talking about him saying cake a billion times and trying to find, the metaphors and the different ways and people breaking it down and being like, you don't get it because you dumb and you not, you don't know music, and other people being like, nah, this verse was trash. Like to people trying to, you know, trash Big Sean, who was my guy, like it just been like laughs. Like I've been seeing that over and over again. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this has been some outrageous takes. So that's been my most recent laughs of and meme, as it were, over the past few days, amid sports memes and all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, whoever you are and whatever you're into, do find a way to smile every day. Try to find the levity in life and in work to help the days go faster. And I think there's plenty of studies to support it lengthening your life, and it's just a better, it's just a better time if you smile. So, um, man, let me just say thank you, Jay, for giving the time. And maybe last question. If you were younger Justin and you were to take one or two things from kind of the summation of our conversation today, maybe the last thing we could do is just offer a couple of, if you don't get anything else from this conversation, make sure you pick up this thing with your right hand and this thing with your left hand and put them in your back pocket.
Mm, that's good. I want to make it good. Um, in your right hand, get money. No, I'm just playing. Uh, you know, to my younger self too, I would say, man, the realm of possibility is just so wide and so large, whether it be career, whether it be the arts, whether it be, you know, who you want to spend your life with as a mirror, or whether you want to be single. Like the realm, I would say that you do not have to have it figured out. And the more you open yourself up to possibilities, man, like, and you open yourself up to God, surprising you, um, man, you will not be obsessed with trying to figure out why your life hasn't conformed to your idea of what your life should be, if that makes sense. Um, I guess another side of it is to we were talking about the balance, like try and be present. Try to this moment that you're in right now, like just try and take advantage of that moment. Tomorrow's problems will handle itself, make sure you're giving yourself fully and wholly to where you're at right now. And you should be good going into the future.
Yeah, love it, man. Mic drop on those.
There you
That's
go. Bar,
um
not the worst bar you ever heard.
yeah, the side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Um, ladies and gentlemen, Justin Washington, I appreciate you, man. Sending love from NorCal down to SoCal, and it's been a pleasure to see you grow and to develop. And um, yeah, where can people find you if they want to hear some beats or want to connect with you in the future or any of that kind of stuff?
Oh, that's a great question too. Well, I'm JAY Wash on the socials. Posted a lot of stuff music wise on my IG recently. Um, you can find me Justin Washington on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on Twitter. You can find me retweeting jokes and memes, and having my various NBA takes. And generally I'm in LA. I'm usually in a house, but I'm down here. So you can find me on LinkedIn, find me on socials, hit me, connect with me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, take it from two students who both gotten C's and still turned out fine. God has blessed us both. I appreciate you, man, for making the time and for sharing some of your journey with the folks that'll watch this. And yeah, there's another community conversation in the books. Have a great week and rest of the weekend. And yeah, we'll connect soon, brother.
All right. Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, B.
Take care, man.
I'll holla.